I studied architecture, but I didn't want to become an architect, so I switched to graphic design, and this video I'm going to be telling you exactly how and why I did that. Please note this is all my personal experience and my personal opinion, so if you disagree with it, you can respectfully disagree without the emotion. Constructive criticism is always welcome, but let's not start an argument in the comments, okay? I'll be splitting this video into 3 parts. So the first part is why I chose to study architecture and why I believe it is a good degree to study. The second part is why I chose to leave the industry and why personally I believe the industry is a bit toxic. And the last part is how and why I switched to graphic design. So let's move on to the first part, which is why I chose to study architecture, which is kind of, I would say, almost like a simplistic reason. I wouldn't say there's something crazy behind it, but basically I liked art, I liked maths, I liked science, and so I kind of just combined the two, or three I'd say, and it formed architecture, and I was just like, okay, why not? Let's just go for it. Also, it's I would say the only art form, or at least at the time, which Asian parents would accept, so that was also a big factor. Now, I personally studied in the UK, which is a bit different to how the rest of the world actually studies architecture. So we do 3 years of undergrad and then 2 years of masters, whereas the rest of the world does 5 years of undergrad. So I think that does make a difference. However, the overall themes and structures are kind of the same, what you would learn and the kind of skills that you would be expected to learn. Please note, I'm also generally speaking talking about larger international universities, so there may be some differences between how the courses are taught, the kind of material that is taught, and it will also differ depending from country to country, but generally speaking, there is quite a bit of overlap between architecture degrees in different countries, so it should still be applicable regardless of where you are in the world. There are several reasons I would actually recommend if someone wants to study an architecture degree or may be interested. The first being, if you have an interest in design or art, but you don't specifically know what you want to do in the future, architecture is a really great degree to study because it has so many transferable skills that you will learn throughout the course. The second reason I would recommend to study an architecture degree is that it is very widely respected throughout the world, generally because it is known to be such a tough degree because you have to do so much work to actually get good grades or even just to keep up with the really fast-paced lifestyle, I would say, of being an architecture student, because you are expected to do so much. You are expected to know 3D, 2D, portfolio skills, presentation skills. There's so much that you have to do, like a completely wide plethora. In a way, I kind of equate it to medicine in the sense that you learn such a broad spectrum of topics, and then within that you can kind of specialize later on. The third reason I would recommend studying architecture is that you develop a really strong work ethic, especially if you actually keep up with the workload. But this is something that, again, kind of ties in with the previous point in the sense that it is widely respected and you are able to keep up a lot better with other design industries regardless of what you choose to go into in the future, because you have been exposed to such a high demanding work ethic in architecture school. The fourth and final reason I would recommend that you study architecture is for the facilities that are offered. Again, this may differ, well, it will differ depending on your university and what is offered to you there, but generally speaking, as an architecture student, you get access to a wide range of facilities, and because you are doing both 3D and 2D, you will get access to more facilities than I would say, let's say, if you studied purely graphic design. If you study purely graphic design, you may not get access to 3D workshops or 3D facilities, so this is something also to keep in mind, and as a student, it's really great just to have access to those facilities because once you get into the real world, you actually have to pay to get access to these things, so it's always great to have that exposure when you are a student. Let's move on to the second part of this video. I feel like I'm talking really fast. Normally these videos tend to take a lot longer now. Anyways, let's move on to the second part of the video, which is why I left the industry. So as I was kind of going through my degree, I would say towards third year, which is the final year in the UK of the undergrad degree, I was feeling a bit disillusioned by architecture. I kind of thought, you know what, I don't think 3D design is for me, which is kind of the feeling that I left my degree with. Obviously, I was very happy with my work, I got good grades, things like that, but I just didn't think architecture was for me. However, I thought that it would be a lot better if I went into the industry first and I got some work experience before I decided to make a decision, and I think that is something really important. I don't think it's wise to make a decision straight after university as to whether you want to change careers or not. Obviously people do it and it's fine if you do, but I would personally say, just to be on the safe side, get some work experience and then decide. So that's what I did. I moved to Dubai, I got, an internship in an architecture firm, and I started working, and that was when it quickly got confirmed that yes, I do not want to continue being an architect. Now, with the UK, there's a really kind of rigorous process to becoming an architect. You have to do a master's, you have to do several exams in between. And so I was kind of on the cusp of deciding whether or not I wanted to, go back to the UK and do my master's and pursue that lengthy and tedious and very expensive process of becoming an architect. Obviously COVID hit and that kind of helped me in my decision, in the sense that I didn't want to go back to the UK, and so I quit being an architect. That wasn't the only reason, there were several other reasons, of which I'm going to be talking about now. The first reason I personally did not like the architecture industry is because of the crazy working hours. You just don't leave. People do not leave the office. It is expected that you will stay for long hours, well after the normal ending hour times. If it's 5 or 6, you're expected to stay till 7, 8, 9. People stay till midnight, people stay till later than that. It's honestly, you don't have a life. I mean, it's just insane. I don't understand why anyone would choose to give their life away like that. I just know. In tandem with that, and I would say the second reason, is the pay is just not worth what you are working for. It's ridiculous, actually. I would say that architects are probably one of the lowest paid designers in the industry, which is ironic because the third point that I was going to say, all of them are connected, I would say, but the third point is that you have this really big prestige, but it's all kind of a facade. When you say that you're an architect, there is a lot of prestige behind it. It's kind of like saying you're a doctor, except you don't have the money to back it up. So it's kind of like, is it really worth it? Is it really worth that we're bigging up architects when you don't get the money for it? You just don't get enough money to sustain yourself for a decent lifestyle. And I would say that's across the board, across the board in terms of every country. It's kind of the same issue that you're having, which is a really big shame. So I think it's because of this generic bubble around the whole idea of, oh, you get to be an architect and it's a really prestigious thing, but underneath the surface you realize it's actually not worth it. You're spending way too much money to get a piece of paper that is going to give you a title that is not going to pay you much, and you're going to have to spend way more of your life than you should have to in an office slaving away for some kind of architect or the other. It just didn't seem worth it, in my opinion. I would also add a fourth reason, which is the work that you do is generally not the kind of work that you did in architecture school, in the sense that when you're in architecture school, you kind of design from start to finish. That's the point. You go from concept to execution, whereas when you're in kind of the real world in architecture, depending on the type of firm you're in, let's say you're in a big firm, you're only going to be involved in one aspect of the design process, and especially as a young architect, as a junior architect, you are generally only going to be involved in, let's say, CAD plans or BIM modeling, or something that's very specific and very niche, and if you don't enjoy that, then it's going to be very, very tedious for you. And the final part of this video that I wanted to talk about is how and why I switched to graphic design. So obviously I mentioned earlier that I wasn't a big fan of 3D, and luckily I was able to get some experience with the marketing department of the architecture firm that I was working with, and I guess you could say I slowly kind of worked my way up, and I soon became the graphic designer for their marketing department within the architecture firm. And that was kind of the long and short of how I switched to graphic design. And then since then I've moved to another company where I now work as a junior 2D designer. So obviously that was a very specific route for me to transition my career into graphic design, but I would say if there's one thing that I would personally advise, it is to make sure that you're exploring different niches, do a lot of digging on the internet, fall down a lot of rabbit holes. Personally, I'm a big fan of just browsing on the internet during your downtime at work, because that really helps you to kind of understand maybe what other industries are out there, maybe what interests you other than your current job if you're not happy where you are. Really cool websites that you can look at are Behance, It's Nice That, Dribble, all these kinds of design websites really help you to understand what the industry is like, what the industry is looking for. LinkedIn is also a really great resource. If you kind of put that you are searching for work, there's a sneaky way to do it so that your current employers don't see that you are looking for work, but that's a great way for recruiters to see if you are looking for a job and if they are hiring. My friend actually the other day just told me that she got headhunted through LinkedIn, so it does actually work. But maybe you can try that if you are looking for another job. Look at your transferable skills, see what you have learned within your degree, your design degree, whether you've studied architecture or not. See what other skills you can transfer to other jobs. Personally, I actually learned video editing in uni when I was studying architecture, and I realized that I really loved it, and that's actually what's been helping me make all these YouTube videos. Another really great channel that helped me was The Future. They are a really great all-in-one design channel. I'd highly recommend them, especially if you want to get into graphic design, even things like web design, business development for graphic design. All really great stuff on that channel. I could not recommend them enough, and they really helped me in the initial days of me transitioning into graphic design. And the final tip that I would suggest in this third part is to always be open to learning and exploring, and make sure that you don't stop, that you don't stagnate. It is just so important. That's something that I can't stress enough. In fact, I'll probably just make a separate video about it, because when we leave school or university, we kind of tend to think, oh, okay, there's a subconscious notion that maybe we can stop learning now. But real life learning starts when you actually leave school, when you leave university, because life itself is just the biggest school. And that is something that unfortunately I could only learn after I left my 21 years of education. So please don't leave it till that late to realize that life is the biggest school and it is the best school that you can get. Please keep learning no matter what age you are. It does not matter if you're like 50, 60, 70, 90, 100. Keep learning. Just keep learning, because that is the only thing that will help you to grow, that will help you to live life in just a generally better way. So with that, I think I'm done with my tips. I feel like I really skimmed over a lot of the things. Like, I feel like I could have talked a lot more, but generally I think that's the overview of what I had to say. If there's anything specific you'd like me to talk about, please leave it in the comments below. You can check out this video on why I think it is important to keep making art well into your 20s and beyond. So with that, I will leave you to keep binging on this channel if you'd like. If not, have a great day, and I will see you next time for another video.